Hello everyone, Tmmgamer here, and today I am bringing you a very interesting episode of Sunday Talk, the series where I take a topic from the gaming industry or from life in general and just discuss it for all you guys, just to try and generate a bit of discussion, try and generate some ideas and opinions, and to see what you guys think of a subject. You know, today's Sunday Talk is going to be another gaming related one. It's going to be about the massive controversy over EA and BioWare's DLC policy for Mass Effect 3. Now, I'm just going to set the discussion up by telling you a little bit of the backstory. Basically, EA and BioWare have planned this DLC to be released on the day of release of Mass Effect 3 called From Ashes. Now, From Ashes, I'm not too sure what the entire package is, but it gives you a couple of weapons here and there, and that's not the major problem. The major problem is, with the From Ashes DLC, you get a real live Prothean. Now, I don't know if you guys have played much Mass Effect, but basically the Prothean civilization is the core civilization in the game. They got extinct 50,000 years ago, so for a real live breathing Prothean to have survived 50,000 years is a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal. And actually, I've thought of an analogy that makes a bit of sense here. Imagine if you're playing FIFA. Imagine if they took the goalkeeper out and made you pay for him in DLC. That's the sort of thing I've been thinking of. Because the Prothean, he's not just this random side character, you know, like a Zaid was in Mass Effect 2, who was free, by the way. But he's a very core character to the story. And EA are going to make you pay for him, basically. Because I think it's about £10, $10 around there. So it's not a lot of money, but it's the idea that EA are just trying to screw that little bit of extra money out of you for DLC. That is the topic of this conversation, whether it's right and what we should do as consumers to combat this. So, I'm going to start this discussion with Total Biscuit's opinion. Now, Total Biscuit is obviously a very well-known YouTuber. I think he's got well over 600,000 subscribers. You know, he is one of the core figures of the YouTube gaming community, and he's come out and basically stood up for the individual consumer in a very noble stand, I think. But he's basically said that for EA to develop DLC alongside the core game and not put it in the disc that you buy with your 30-40 quid, however much it turns out to be, it is wrong. And his argument is that you shouldn't be able to develop characters, you know, with such an important impact on the story. I mean, the impact on the story this Prothean's going to have is just going to be huge. And then put him in paid DLC on release day. You know, he argued that if you were to develop this Prothean after you've released the game, it's fine to make you pay for DLC. Because all we expect on the disc is everything you've worked on up till that point. So if you work on the Prothean after that point, you can charge it for DLC. He also says that he doesn't mind things like skins, new weapons in a single player game. You know, that is another good thing as well. Multiplayer games should never ever have paid DLC for weapons, because weapons affect multiplayer online too much, and it would be unfair if you could go out and buy a weapon that makes you better online. It is not fair at all. So never ever do that. But you know, Total Biscuit's opinion is that you shouldn't force your consumers to pay for DLC that really should be in the core game, and for them to get away with that is a really big, you know, kick in the teeth for consumers. This is Total Biscuit's argument. Now, when I first heard this, I felt it was very compelling. However, in the last few days, I've read an editorial by Paul Tassi, and I think it was in Forbes magazine. And basically, the whole gist of his argument is that it's our fault, the consumer's fault, for EA wanting to do this. Because he argues that EA are just simply doing an experiment. They are slowly bumping up the cost of DLC to see how much we are prepared to pay. And eventually, he argues, EA and other gaming companies will reach the threshold of what we are willing to pay, and they will see their sales drop. And as they see their sales drop, they will reduce the DLC cost to get the sales back up, and it will reach sort of a happy equilibrium. Now, this is a very interesting idea, but I really can't see EA doing that. I can see EA trying to screw us for every penny we're worth. And the question is, what can we do about it? Because I'm sure Paul Tassi, you know, has the right idea. You know, I'm sure that the DLC will only reach a certain point, but I think him suggesting that EA will reduce this on its own over the course of time as sales drop, I think that's a bit much. I think what consumers need to do, what me and you guys need to do, is make a bit of a stand. But the thing is, Total Biscuit has suggested that he's going to boycott Mass Effect 3 because of EA's policy. Now, I think that's a little bit unfair on BioWare, because BioWare makes some fantastic games, and I reckon that 90% of this DLC policy has come from EA. Like EA pushing this on BioWare and saying, listen, make that Prothean DLC, make it DLC, make them pay 10 quid for it. You know, that is what I seriously think has happened here. So the question is, how do we, as consumers, go out there and enjoy Mass Effect 3 to the full without giving EA too much of our money? Because at the end of the day, I don't mind paying 40-50 quid for a game, because I want the game's developers to get money for all their hard work. I think that's only fair. You know, if they go out and spend 6 months, a year developing a game, they deserve to get money for it. If it's a good game, you know, I'll quite happily pay that money. When the problem comes is when game developers and, you know, big overarching companies like EA especially come under this, when they try and abuse their loyal fan base, because they know that a game like Mass Effect, a game like Call of Duty, a game like FIFA, you know, these games have core fan bases of millions of people, and I'm being deadly serious. Call of Duty has millions of dedicated fans who will buy it every single time, and I would class myself as one of those dedicated fans. But, you know, what the problem comes from is when these companies like Infinity Ward, Activision, EA, they try and squeeze every penny out of you with DLC. I mean, you can very easily pay 60 quid for DLC. Now, in a game like Call of Duty, where a dedicated player can spend, you know, 20, 25, 30, 40 days of multiplayer gameplay on that game, that's fine, because you end up paying a tiny amount in hours, you know, money per hour to enjoy your game. And imagine if you go to a movie, you're going to be paying 10 quid for the ticket to that movie, and that movie's going to be at most 2.5 hours long, unless it's like a Lord of the Rings style 3.5 hour classic movie. But, you know, 2 hours, you're paying like 4 quid an hour. If you spend 50 quid on Modern Warfare 3 and you spend 20, 25 days online, you're going to be paying pennies an hour to enjoy that game. Pennies an hour. So the idea that games are expensive as an entertainment medium is, I don't think that's true. I think they're very cheap as an entertainment medium, because you get so much shelf life out of them. However, they are becoming more expensive because game companies like EA are slowly ramping up the DLC cost. Now, at the moment, I don't particularly mind paying £10 for a little bit of extra DLC, but when it's a core character to the story, that is the problem. And it comes back to what I said earlier. What do we as consumers do to counteract this? Because at the end of the day, EA would be bankrupt without consumers. It's just, that's the simple black and white of the situation. EA needs those loyal fans going out there buying FIFA, buying Mass Effect to keep them afloat. And the power is really in our hands here. You know, like I said, I don't think we should be saber rattling over this, because games companies and games developers deserve to get paid for their hard worked and hard earned products. You know, if they spend a year on it, they deserve to get paid for it. That's fine. But what I think we should do here is just put a foot down a little bit and say, listen, EA, we understand you work hard on these games. We understand BioWare works hard on these games, but we all also work hard to make the money that we're going to be used to pay for these games, and we do not deserve to pay through the nose just because you want to see an extra zero on your bank balance. You know, that is the problem, really. And it's really difficult because Mass Effect 3, it's a game, it's perhaps the only game I have been this excited about since COD 4. That is how excited I am about Mass Effect 3. So asking me to boycott Mass Effect 3, it's not going to work. Because I want to play that game. I want to play that game so much, you know, that I am going to be prepared to pay the 40 quid and the 10 quid extra for DLC to play the game as it's supposed to be played. So that brings me back to, how do we, as consumers, let EA know that this has annoyed us? And I've come up with several ways to do that, because Mass Effect 3 is a game that I've penciled down as a definite purchase. But that means that other games, perhaps other EA games that I was going to buy, I might consider not buying anymore. So whilst I'm accepting that the Mass Effect DLC is going to cost me 10 quid more, I might not buy, for example, FIFA Street that costs me 30 quid. So EA are losing out on 20 quid. So whilst they have made a little bit of money on the DLC for this one, their sales in another game are going to go down because of me going, no, if you want me to pay for DLC, I'll do it, but I won't buy another one of your games to compensate. And I think that's a very good way of getting around it, because BioWare have made a magnificent game, and you want to be able to enjoy that. However, at the same time, EA are trying to screw you over in terms of DLC. So you want to buy Mass Effect, but you want to show EA that we are not happy with the DLC policy. And I think that way is a great way of doing it. Another idea I've thought as well, I am not going to buy another Ultimate Team pack this year because of EA's downloadable policy. And Ultimate Team packs are extortionate as well. You know, people spend hundreds of pounds on Ultimate Team, hundreds and hundreds of pounds. So I've spent about 20 quid already this year in Ultimate Team, so I'm going to cut that out. I'm not going to spend any more money on EA's Ultimate Team anymore. I'm just going to draw the line in the sand and say no. So whilst you might have got 10 quid of my money through Mass Effect EA, you're going to lose 20 quid of my money through Ultimate Team, and you might lose 30-40 quid of my money through FIFA Street. And I think this is the way we can really make a difference as consumers. We can say that, yep, you might put extra DLC on your big release title, but we aren't going to buy any of your other games as compensation. You know, we do not have an infinite supply of money here. We have a finite supply of money that we try and get as many games with as possible. And if that means we have to drop one or two of your titles to be able to afford Mass Effect 3, we will do that. Because in the end of the day, you would much rather us buy 3 games than buy 1 game and DLC. But if we buy 1 game and DLC and refuse to buy Ultimate Team package, refuse to buy FIFA Street, refuse to buy other EA releases, we'll put the pressure on. And EA will understand that they cannot get away with simply trying to, lever money out of us unfairly. Like I've said before, if you work for a year on a game, you deserve to get every penny you can out of that game, within reason. You do not deserve to try and screw over the average hard-working person who's been saving for 3 months to afford your game. Because what they were going to do as well, they were not initially going to release this information about the DLC until about a week before release. It got found, after it got released early, accidentally, on Xbox Live and Origin. EA cocked up on the DLC release. That is why people found out. So that is even more wrong, in my opinion, because not only are you making people pay more for your game, you're not telling them until a week before it's out. So, if you've gone, listen, there's going to be some release day DLC. It's not going to be too big. It's going to be about 10 quid. And if you'd said that about 3 months ago, people could start to think, the people could start to think, shall I get this DLC? Will I have enough money? Is it going to impact on other areas of my life? Because 50 quid for some people is a lot of money. 50 quid for me is a hell of a lot of money. I cannot just fritter 50 quid away on a whim. I need to plan when I'm going to spend that 50 quid. And for you to try and sneak some DLC in under my nose a week before release day, that is a low blow. It's a very, very, very low blow. And I completely understand that in the grand scheme of things, this isn't that important. But as a quite a loyal gamer, I get 3-4 games a year, from a lot of major games developers. And this is a worrying trend that we need to buck. Because whilst it might be 10 quid in Mass Effect 3, who knows, in the next big release, it could be 30 quid, it could be 40 quid, We need to draw the line here, I think, as consumers. We need to say, okay, we'll just let you get away with this one, but we are not going to let you get away with a step more. I think we should draw the line here. It's annoying that they are making us pay, but at the end of the day, I would prefer to get games for free. And I know that isn't going to happen. I know that these people work hard in their game and they deserve to get paid. So I'm quite happy to pay that 40 quid to get their game. However, what I am not prepared to do in a game like Mass Effect is spend another 20, 30, 40 quid on DLC. I am not going to do that as a consumer. So I will spend 10 quid on From Ashes, but if you up the price, to £10 and 1 penny for the next big game you release, I am not buying that. And as you've increased the DLC for Mass Effect 3, in compensation, I am not going to buy any Ultimate Team packs, and I am very strongly considering not getting FIFA Street or another EA game. I'm going to have a look and see what other EA games are going to be released, see which ones I would have thought about buying, and I'm going to scratch them off my list now. So I hope that's quite a balanced viewpoint, because I've sort of come down in the middle of Total Biscuit and Paul Tassi there, because Paul Tassi's been basically saying the equilibrium of the market will sort it out, and Total Biscuit's been saying this is completely bang out of order, you shouldn't do this. I fall a little bit in the middle, because in an ideal world this wouldn't happen, but unfortunately, you know, we see countless examples every single day that we do not live in an ideal world. So I think we've got to make the best of the situation here. I am more than prepared to pay 40 quid for a game if it's a high quality game, and this is where Mass Effect really is a high quality game, because if this was just a bug standard release they were trying to tap 20 quid out of, you know, I'd refuse to buy it. But because it's Mass Effect, I am going to buy it. However, because I am quite a smart consumer, I am going to make EA lose money in other areas, or not gain my money in other areas. So while their spreadsheets of Mass Effect 3 are going to look slightly better because of me, their spreadsheets for FIFA Ultimate Team are going to look quite a lot worse because of me. So that is the thing we've got to decide as consumers. You know, the power is in our hands. We can decide what these game companies do. However, I think it would be wrong of us to try and completely screw the game companies over and get them producing games for us for 20 quid. Because if we do that, the quality will drop. It's like a considerable amount. So, in my opinion, what would be a good idea to do is take this one on the chin, take this 10 quid DLC and just go, okay, I'll pay your 10 quid. However, do it with a proviso. Say, we will buy your £10 DLC this time, but if you ever consider trying to screw us over for more, we are drawing the line and we are not buying your game at all. So this, I think, is the defining moment in the games industry. From this point, it can either swing a bit towards the consumers, which I think it needs to do, because I think, you know, EA and BioWare and all these companies make a lot of money, you know, off us, and I think they need to recognise just how important the role we play in their success. So hopefully, after this Mass Effect 3, you'll see game companies realise that people are beginning to get a little bit too close to where they're prepared to pay here, you know, and any further, people are just going to be saying no and keeping their money. So I think EA need to just realise that they've annoyed us a little bit with this policy. You know, we are still prepared to pay for this game because it's a big release, but in the future, if they try this trick again, we're going to draw the line and say no. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed my discussion. I hope you've enjoyed my viewpoint on this. You know, I would urge you to check out the Total Biscuit video. It's a big video on his channel. If you just click on his channel, it will be there. So just to get a slightly different viewpoint and just to hear his arguments fresh, because I didn't manage to get all of his arguments in, obviously for time's sake, because he did a 20-minute video of his own. So it would have had to, you know, me and I do a 40-minute video, and I don't really want to do that. But guys, I really hope you've enjoyed my discussion today. It's very, very topical, obviously with Mass Effect 3 getting released in 2 days in the United States and on the 9th of March in Europe. So I really hope you've enjoyed it, and as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.